Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the fourth season of the Aspen Wye Fellows. I'm Phil Webster, founding member of the Fellows, and I'm delighted to see so many of you here again, as well as a number of new faces, a lot of new faces. We're pleased to have you here. I particularly am pleased to welcome some new Fellows, Warren Davis and Madge Henning, Deborah Jennings, Wilson and Katie Wyatt, Charles and Sharon Manning. It's great to have all of you join the group. Our colleagues from Aspen, Aaron Phillips, Susan Sherwin, and Bonnie Messick, have been doing some incredible work lining up these programs for this fall. And tonight's speaker is just one example of the kind of quality programming that we're going to be bringing to you as the months move along. Coming up on November 13th will be Julia Chen Block, former U.S. Ambassador to Nepal and current president of the U.S.-China Education Trust. And on December 12th, our friend Walter Isaacson, president of the Aspen Institute and esteemed author of Franklin and Einstein and everything else, will be here to talk about his new book. And Mary Robinson, the former President of Ireland and the first woman President of Ireland and the former United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, has accepted our invitation to come here and be with us, and she'll be here in the spring. And she also was an August recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Obama, and so we're looking forward to that. Unfortunately, one piece of bad news: we heard on Wednesday that John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard Group and the guru of the mutual fund industry, won't be able to be with us on October 9th. He was hospitalized last week, and on coming out of the hospital was told by his doctors, take 6 weeks of bed rest, which is very difficult for Jack Bogle if you know him. He hopes to come back in the spring, and we hope he will too, because he can solve all of our financial woes. The Fellows are also being invited to a number of book discussions at the DuPont Circle headquarters of the Aspen Institute. For example, on October 6th, there's a book talk with one of my favorites, Katie Kay, the Washington correspondent for BBC World News America, and Claire Shipman, the senior national correspondent for ABC News. And we get those invitations monthly, and I encourage all of you to take advantage of it. We mix music with our discussions, and coming up on Sunday afternoon, October 25th, at the Y Woods Conference Center at the other end of the campus, will be a recital by the distinguished international flautist Anastasia Petanova from Russia, with her pianist husband, Timothy Hoft, and that's going to be a terrific concert. And in addition to dialogues and music, the Y Fellows know we like to party, and our holiday celebration will be on December 12th down the road at River House. So all in all, a busy schedule, and we encourage you to take advantage of it. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Susan Sherwin, Executive Vice President of the Aspen Institute, to introduce tonight's speaker. Susan.
Thank you, Phil. I cannot thank really you and everyone, obviously, for coming and joining us, but especially Phil for his inspiration and attention, and he keeps at us all the time about worrying who will be our next speaker. When we heard on Wednesday about Jack Bogle, and we were so sorry. It was very clear that it was only illness that was stopping him. We are busy looking at another speaker for October. It looks like that it will be Robert Dallek, a very noted historian and commentator. He's written books on Johnson and Reagan, and I think someone that you would enjoy. As soon as it is confirmed, we will send an email out to you. It will be a different date, highly likely than the one that was originally scheduled for Mr. Bogle. So we'll keep tuned and watch the notes, and we'll keep our ears open. And we do welcome your suggestions for other people to join us in the spring, we'll be scheduling that and trying to get that all locked up so you can have those on your schedule. Well, it's my great honor tonight to welcome Ambassador Jawad on behalf of the Institute, on behalf of Walter Isaacson, who would have been here. He has been in Lebanon this week. We are doing several different initiatives in the Middle East, and Walter was there for all of this week, just returning late tonight, tomorrow. Well, probably tomorrow morning. So we're very sorry that he couldn't be here himself to welcome you. We are just thrilled that you would come out and join us. I think it goes without saying that this is a topic that all of us have keen interest. We've been watching, reading, trying to learn as much as we can. Afghanistan has a long and rich and complicated history, and some of which we know, some of which we probably don't know. And you have a bio of the ambassador along that was put on your chair. But let me just say that this is someone who has devoted his life really to the diplomatic service, a very distinguished author himself, who has been side by side with Hamid Karzai and working to try to bring peace and posterity in an area that obviously our country is working closely with. And so we are grateful that he could take the time and come and welcome. I should add that the ambassador has informed us that he will speak very briefly, because he really wants to have a discussion and have conversation with you. We have this time, because this is being taped, a central microphone. So when we're ready for that part of the program, please come to the center of the room and speak up to the microphone. So, Ambassador, please, we welcome you.
Good evening. It was truly a very pleasant drive to come here, traffic aside, but it was great being here. So it's a pleasure being here. I'm truly grateful to Susan and Phil for providing me this opportunity to be here. Walter is a very good friend, and we work on many projects, and I am truly honored for having the opportunity to be here with you. I had the honor of speaking with some of the guests, truly people who have been around the world, very experienced, very knowledgeable. So as you can see, I'm a junior diplomat here, and I would like to talk about Afghanistan, but also learn from your insights. And when I came here first, it's, as you know, can imagine, I was told that the ambassador's talks are like the national anthem before the baseball game. And I said, well, that's just a big deal. Baseball is big in America. But then I realized that really no one comes to baseball game to listen to the national anthem. And no, everyone can wait till it's over so they can see the real action, the food or the reception or the cocktail. And the only time that people will remember the national anthem in a baseball game is when they screw up big time. So therefore, I try my best not to screw up on that presentation. I will speak about the security situation in Afghanistan. How is the security condition in Afghanistan? And what is the situation or the condition of the security forces in Afghanistan, both Afghan and international forces? And who are the Taliban? And we hear a lot in the media and other places that there is a need to engage the Taliban, to talk to the Taliban. Can we talk to the Taliban? And if we talk, what should be the parameters of this engagement and talk? And the presidential elections are on the news, so I'll talk about what happened, what's taking shape, and what is next for Afghanistan. A security update. As you can imagine, security situation in Afghanistan is fragile still. 7-8 years after the presence of the international community, we see increased suicide attacks, use of IEDs, and but still, one point that I want to make is the degree, the amount of the people that are being killed in Iraq today is 400% more than in Afghanistan on a daily basis on violence. So while we are hearing a lot about the event in Afghanistan, life goes on. There are IEDs attacks, there are terrorist attacks, but at the same time, life goes on normal. The reason for that, and we will discuss in more detail, is still the capacity of the Afghan government to deliver services, to provide protection to the Afghan people is limited. And we don't have adequate numbers of international forces on the ground in Afghanistan to do the job which we should be doing. It's protecting our people and defending our land. We are very grateful for you to be there, but we don't have enough troops there. And those troops that were there in Afghanistan, and for which we are grateful from NATO countries and many others, they really do not coordinate fully. And the heavy burden of fighting is upon you, basically, and us. So the presence of the many NATO countries is an important political asset for us, but military-wise, it really does not make a huge difference, their presence. We should not forget that the past 8 years, the terrorist sanctuaries across the border in Pakistan were open. They're still open. Ideological, financial, logistical support to the terrorist group is still available on the other side of the border of Afghanistan. And two very dangerous trends took place in the past 8 years. One is the Talibanization of Pakistan. Pakistani society, Pakistani was Talibanized to an extreme extent. And at the same time, recently in the past 2 years, we see a trend of Pakistanization of Al-Qaeda. More Pakistani moved into the leadership of the Al-Qaeda organization. And these two trends are affecting Afghanistan, of course, immediately and right away. This chart will show you the trend of the violence, mostly in the east of Afghanistan and southern Afghanistan, border in Pakistan. And here you see that the way that the terrorists are attacking mostly Afghan forces and international forces, and unfortunately we lost 5 brave Italian soldiers yesterday, is by using IEDs. And it shows the trend from 2001 to 2008, how sharply actually the use of IEDs, which was started in Iraq and somehow perfected in Afghanistan, is killing our soldiers and yours, sons and boys. So what we're doing about that? Sometimes the perception is that, well, it's just U.S. forces fighting there. Yes, the heavy burden of the fighting is on the shoulder of Americans, and we're very grateful for that. But you're not the only one. The Afghan National Army that has been built through your assistance now have 80,000 troops. We would like to increase this to 134,000. Again, if we had done it the right way in the past 8 years, we should have had a 250,000 army by now in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is bigger than Iraq. Afghanistan has more difficult terrain than Iraq. But still, we had a hard time making the case here to give us adequate number of soldiers in Afghanistan. There is no shortage of courage in Afghanistan. There is no shortage of willingness to fight. There is shortage of skills, of trainers, of equipments. And this started slowly, very slowly. And just recently, the DoD have agreed to increase that number to 134,000, and we are pushing to increase that number to 240, because that's any military calculation, and I know a lot of people from the military backgrounds are here, that you use, we do under the current security threat, we need 240,000 security forces, along with 150,000 police force, which we don't have. We have about 70,000 police force that is not properly trained. And we have built the National Academy to also to train the officers. International forces, slightly over 100,000 troops are in Afghanistan from 21 different countries that have troops, but 41 countries have military presence in Afghanistan. That there are countries who do not have troops, but are providing other type of equipment. But overall, the combined strength of the Afghan and international forces is not adequate to overcome the current security challenges. And there are two solutions. Either we increase the number of the international troops. We know there are some constraints, there are difficulties to do so. Or we improve the quality of these troops. We have large formation of European troops or other countries' troops that are not fighting. They are in their barracks. If we enable them to go out and fight, to conduct patrols, to have helicopters and others, then there will be no need to increase the number significantly, because the quality and the quantity of troops are related. President Obama is sending 21,000 troops. A part of it's been deployed. A small part of it still has to be deployed. And there is discussions about increasing the number of the troops. It's a sensitive political question for President Obama's administration to decide, because of the health care and many other domestic issues There will be resistance from extreme left Democrats, from Republicans. Republicans are overall supportive. But I think that U.S. administration should show commitment to success, clearly. That commitment to success not necessarily means sending right away more troops. But if he ponders and we are not sure and take our time for too long, we will lose support in Europe and among our NATO allies. So it is time to be more decisive. I will talk briefly about the new U.S. strategy that was implemented through General McChrystal, which was very much welcomed by the Afghans. It was something that we've been asking for a long time. It included a few really basic but very important components. First, to improve the conduct of the military operation by going out and conducting patrols. By that I mean if you have a large formation of troops that are staying in their barracks, and you can basically from their barracks you can see Taliban actually driving around the base, then people feel unprotected. People don't understand why these troops are here. So there is that's exactly what your Marines are doing in Afghanistan and Helmand. So when they are there, they go out and patrol. It's dangerous, we know. But that is the only way that you give a sense of protection to the population. Otherwise, the population see that troops are there in their barracks, and then Talibans are roaming around with their motorcycles and beheading teachers and burning schools and clinics. So they will have doubt to cooperate with us, with you, because they don't feel being protected. That's an important change. And another important change that General McChrystal is institutionalized is to the first priority of fighting in Afghanistan is to protect the Afghan people, not to kill the enemy at any cost. This is very important because in many instances, if we take one enemy out and with it we kill 20 civilians, we defeat the purpose because then we lose the support of the village. So he has changed this and has made some progress. The other component is, of course, to focus on development assistance, building schools and clinics to make sure that the community feels a benefit from the presence of the international troops. And the other part that is mutual between us and your support is to improve our capacity as the government, to govern better, to deliver services, to have better clinic, to have better schools. It is not that there's a competition between us and Taliban for providing better services, that if we build one school, Taliban are coming building 2 schools. No. Taliban are coming and beheading the teacher. Taliban are coming and burning the school that you are building. So the way people tolerate Taliban is because they are victimized, they are terrorized. They're not sure that either you as international community or we as the Afghan government can protect them. And if they're not sure, then they get along with the bad guys. So, and what can we do to prevent civilian casualties? That this, as you know, this has been an issue in the past between the Afghan government and the United States, that we insisted that we have to reduce the number of the civilians being killed in the operations. We have to do this, even if it means that we have to take a step back. We have to do it. Imagine the Taliban, the terrorists by their nature, they hide among civilians. They shoot on patrol exactly where a wedding is taking place in the village. And then they go and enter among the guests in the village. And we have 2 options. We can bomb the wedding and kill the bad guys, or we can wait. If you have small group of commandos, for instance, with helicopters, which we didn't have in the past, and you can surround the village and just wait. They will come out one day from the compound or from there, and then we can get them, and they have more value. But if they don't have, the reason that a lot of civilians were getting killed is there is shortage of equipment, there's shortage of commandos and helicopters. Therefore, if there is a report of activities of the terrorists, there's aerial bombing. And when the aerial bombing will kill everyone in home. So there's a lot of progress on that, and we very much appreciate especially General McChrystal's and the new administration's leadership on that. Instead of aerial bombing, it should be more surgical operations. So if you get the reports, should go with the commandos, get the bad guys. He has more value. Use more human intelligence instead of just electronics means. And you should have more rapid response units that if there is a report of suspicious activity, they can act quickly and deal with it. And also, what we have been asking is to build the capacity of the Afghan Air Force. So if there is a bombing is needed, there wouldn't be actually a U.S. being put on the line. You get the report of negative activities, the Afghan helicopters or will go in and conduct the operation. If they make a mistake, then we will be blamed for it, not you. Because when a civilian dies, everyone loses. Afghan civilian loses, Afghan government loses, and international community loses, except for the bad guys, except for the terrorists, that they will make a big deal out of that. So we have a vested interest to work together on that. The operation that's conducting in Afghanistan tradition, the same pattern of counterinsurgency war, it's to shape, clear, hold, and build. And by that, I mean that before the operation is started, some work needs to take place at the local level to prepare the ground for the operation as far as intelligence and other. And then the purpose of the operation is to go into a large area and clear the enemy, which your forces are doing generally very successfully. When Marine forces went to Helmand, Taliban fled actually. They didn't provided a tough resistance. They came back with roadside bombing, suicide bombing, but they don't fight like in old meaning of like man in a front line. But it's equally important to, after that they have been cleared from the area, to build the capacity of us and you to hold this area, to make sure that the people feel a benefit from our presence and your presence in their village. That's a big difference. If you are here, then the school is open, that the clinic is working, and there is a functioning court system. This is the part that's being emphasized more right now. Otherwise, you conduct a military operation, the Taliban will go into Pakistan, the operation is over, they will come back. And there is not much benefit from that. And you cannot hold this area unless you start building it, unless you start helping the people. And because there is no way to have stability if there is no development. In the interest of time, so we can go talk some of these subjects more in detail, but let me give you a profile of who are the Taliban, and also answer this question that should we talk to them, and what to tell them if they talk. So the good thing in Afghanistan is the Taliban are not a mystery. They are not like the forces of say, Muqtada Sadr in Iraq, that people would not know what they are about, and let's give them a chance. People exactly know what kind of isolation, what kind of poverty will bring Taliban to Afghanistan. They were a government there. They brutalized women, and you're familiar with the pictures. I understand that Khaled Hosseini was here with some of the friends I've mentioned that I met with him. The books fully describe what happened to Afghan children and women through the brutality of the Taliban. There is no clear political vision. There is no Che Guevara among the Taliban leadership. There's not even a Yasser Arafat among Taliban leadership. It's a blind clergy that's been created by some intelligence agencies outside Afghanistan. People have not even seen him. The influence of foreign ideological and financial support is there. The leaderships are mostly based outside Afghanistan, and they're linked in with Al-Qaeda, and I'll talk about the link with Al-Qaeda a little bit more. Now we see actually from the traditional Taliban that started in the mid-1990s, we see a second generation of Taliban, which I call Taliban 2.0, that improved version. So they are aiming to derail reconstruction. They are really targeting journalists, aid workers, and others. They are capitalizing also on public frustrations. So if there is no school, if there is no improvement in the life of people, they are a prey to that. They said, look, the world is saying that they are here with you for 8 years, but there's no electricity in your village. And they're true. It's still less than 20% of Afghan has access to electricity. So this is a hard argument to counter. And they use IEDs and EFPs and a new advanced form of IEDs that penetrate actually tanks and armored vehicles. And suicide bombing is used properly. And in the past, you probably remember that they used to burn films and then smash TV sets, and they were completely against the media. And now they have sophisticated operation that produces DVDs and produces films and programming for them. When they send suicide bombing or roadside bombing, they send someone with a camera with it, and they film it, and right away they put it on Al Jazeera or on their website 5 minutes after the operation. Now it becomes to the crucial question of talking with Taliban. You see that everyone is discussing that we should talk to them. Or a couple of points that I would like to make. First, when you talk with the enemy, you have to talk from a position of strength. If it's perceived that you're not strong, that you're losing, then why they should talk to you? And keep in mind that the definition of victory for you and I is very different from the definition of victory for the terrorist. Definition of victory for you and I means building a school. building a clinic, building a road. For definition of victory for Taliban means beheading a teacher, which is burning the clinic. If they can do it, they're successful. It's all over the news. That school was burned, that IED went off, killed 3 Italian soldiers. For them, that's victory. So if it's perceived that we are not winning, then what's the point of talking to them? Or what's the point of them talking to us if they perceive that they're winning? So we have to be in a position of strength to talk first. And we need to have a clear definition of what do you mean by enemy? What do you mean by peace? What do you mean by success? And here, I clearly categorize the Taliban for you. What consists Taliban? We have 10% ideological Taliban that are affiliated with Al-Qaeda, that are working with Al-Qaeda. This affiliation in Afghanistan goes back to 1979 when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan and these unwanted Arab elements came to Afghanistan. We don't speak Arabic. We don't share anything in common with the Arab countries. But they came. They came because they were providing a resistance against communism, and everybody encouraged them. Everybody in the West and Arab countries encouraged them. The United States and other countries send money, and then Arab sends their extremists to go and fight the communists in Afghanistan. Because it was perceived that there's no tomorrow in Afghanistan, we will just let these guys kill each other and kill a few Afghans and just bleed the Russians. Nobody thought that there will be a day that Afghans will defeat the Russians, or there will be no Russia around, or no Soviet Union around. That was not thought of. So these 10% of the Taliban, they're ideological, they're affiliated with Al-Qaeda, we cannot talk to them. They despise everything that you and I will stand for. Liberty, gender equality, education, women empowerment, they hate all of that. We have to fight with them, we have to eliminate them, or they will eliminate us. The next 30% of the Talibans are militias. Basically guys who have been recruited either by ISI in Pakistan, by the narco-traffickers in Afghanistan, or they've been antagonized by the military operation of NATO and US forces. Their villages was burned unnecessarily, they got upset. Or because of the lack of proper governance on our part, our governor, our chief of police was abusive, and they left and pick up the arm to fight against us. So that group we should talk to. We should find out why they are upset and what makes them there. We should bring them into the fold. And now, the remaining 60% of Taliban is what I call paycheck Taliban. It's young man and mostly man, fortunately no woman, that's fortunate, that have no education. They are being brainwashed, mostly in madrasas on the other side of Afghan border or inside Afghanistan. That's been promised either paradise or money. They're getting paid $300 a month to fight. So for this group, there is no need to talk. There is no need to killing. We need to give them job. We need to give them hope. We have to make sure that if you tell them to come back to your village, American is not going to send you to Guantanamo Bay, and Afghan government is not going to kill you. We have to give them this message. So we have 3 categories, and we should have 3 different approaches on how to deal with them. I will cover briefly also the issue of the elections, an important subject. So, as you know, the election in Afghanistan was on the news excessively. So a lot of facts, a lot of information, but a lot of also misinformation and disinformation. First, probably a lot of you didn't know that there were 7,000 international observers, international and Afghans, observing this election. One of the most watched elections in the history of that region, which is good, exactly that's how we want it to happen. More than 35% of registered voters were women. We had 2 women running for the presidency of Afghanistan. It was not just President Karzai and Dr. Abdullah running. Initially there was 41, and then it dropped to 32. 32 candidates were running, including 2 women, for the presidency of Afghanistan. And there was elaborate preparation to get this done. But yet, also, of course, the election was conducted in the middle of a war. Taliban would, on the countryside, would stop people who had a purple finger, will cut their finger, will cut their ear for going out to vote. So it was not just a picnic, a walk in the cake, or whatever they call it here in the U.S. So it was serious business. So therefore, it was not a normal election under normal circumstances. It has its own challenges. The country was in the war. Still, 37% of the people went out to vote. There were irregularities, and especially in the areas in the south where just in Kandahar city, 18 rockets came during the election hours. So, of course, the international observer could not be there. And when they are not there, then the local guys who are running the election, he become too enthusiastic in favor of the candidate that he likes and may do things that he's not supposed to be doing. But this is the first time that the Afghans are fully running an election, too. It's not like we've been doing it like you were doing it for 200 years and then still having a Florida incident. So, therefore, the condition was different on the ground in Afghanistan. But still, we have a complaint commission. The final results are out. President Karzai got 54% of the vote. Dr. Abdullah, the second, has 27%. But there is an election commission that's led with 3 international staff and 2 Afghans that are working and educating the complaints. There will be ways, actually, to look into the complaints. If they're legitimate, the vote should be disqualified, excluded. And if needed, there will be a second round. About the second round, Afghan laws require absolute majority, meaning that the winner should have more than 50% of the votes. So if the president has less than that, anyone has less than that, there will be a second round. And if it happens, it will be between President Karzai and Dr. Abdullah. And if the election complaint commission disqualify enough votes, this might happen. But keep in mind that the second round will cost $100 million financially. And it will cost the life of many Afghans and international forces. On the day of the election, 9 Afghan election observers died, and 9 police officers patrolling the polling stations. We will have, most probably, repeat of that. The timing is also crucial. In northern and central Afghanistan, snow is going to start to fall very soon. It has to take place in October. And I don't know what can we change on the ground in Afghanistan in 3 weeks to have an election that's very different from what took place last time. So one has to be realistic about what could we change in 3 weeks, and can we do it, actually print on the ballots and take the ballots all over the country. And as some of you have seen it, the ballots went to different parts of the country on helicopters, on cars, on the back of the donkeys, where there was no roads. And this is the same thing that has to be repeated. But still, I think this was an example of how Afghanistan is changing from under the Taliban 6-7 years ago, when we have an absolute dictatorial government that really ruled through fears, to an elected president, elected parliament, a constitution, and from complete absence of women from the political and public life. We have now 76 women are working in the Afghan parliament. 27% of the members of the parliament in Afghanistan are women. This is higher than a lot of countries. I don't want to say Washington, but that's true too. So the GDP of Afghanistan increased from 2.4% to 9.7%, a 300% increase on the GDP. In many other, there's no formal banking system today. Where there are 12 independent banks operating in Afghanistan. School enrollment, that's very important for our future. Less than 1 million students were going to school in 2001. Today, 6.5 million are going to school, and 34% are girls. It's an important milestone for the future of Afghanistan. There were 4,000 students in only 1 university in Afghanistan. Today, there are 17 universities with 86,000 students enrolled on that universities. So, and the media is also, there are 17 privately owned TV stations in the country. Just recently, probably some of you see that documentary that they copied they made Afghan Idol copy based on an American Idol. It's a context of bringing joy back to the Afghan people. And last, I will just pause on 2 minor issues. We hear a lot in the media that says why we are there, why we are in Afghanistan, and what we're doing there. What a short memory people are asking this question. I'm surprised. And the same question, first 9/11 is so clear. You were attacked. You came, when the Soviet fell in the 1980s, we were asking you to come and stay in Afghanistan. But the same guy said, no, Afghanistan is too far, too insignificant, it's not worth it. We have to pull out, and you did. The result was the internal war and then Taliban. And even before the 9/11 took place, there were attacks on U.S. embassies in SS Cole. They said, oh, there's no need to go there, we'll just fire some missiles on them, get rid of them. It didn't work. 9/11 took place. And again, I'm surprised, some pundits in the media here says, well, we have to pull out of Afghanistan and target Al-Qaeda through remote control. We have tried these things. This is all done. And I'm surprised that this argument will raise again. And Afghanistan is not as far as it's perceived to be. That's why we learned from the Cold War and the other incidents. And also, Afghan people would like to partner with you in a difficult part of the world. And your presence, your soldiers fighting there and dying there, your money has made a tremendous improvement in the life of the people. I give you some glimpses of education, healthcare, many other areas. And this is greatly appreciated. And if we want to have a stable area in Afghanistan and the region, we need this kind of improvement. We don't want your soldiers, your sons and daughters, to be in Afghanistan forever. It's our country, it's our job, it's our duty to defend it. I hope that we will return it back to you as your partner one day. But to get the skills that we need, you have to stay with us for some time. And what's next for Afghanistan, I'll be brief. Now that the election is over, we'll have a new president. There's a talk about Afghanistan being in a turning point or a tipping point. That both of them is true. It's a crucial time for Afghanistan. And again, we have to show a commitment to success. You cannot. This is not the spirit of the United States. Just walk away, and that will have impact bigger than Afghanistan. And it is time to deliver both for us as the Afghan government to improve the life of people and for our international friends. When the presidential elections are completed, areas of priority for Afghan government will be fighting narcotics and fighting corruption. These are important issues that is demanded by our Afghan people. Focus on agriculture. There are some plans that we are developing on this. And strengthening the national unity, bringing some of the elements who are running in the elections, one thing I learned personally and I admire is as tough as the two candidates running here, but like the next day, the same day when the results are known, they call each other and say, congratulations. It will take for us some time to get to this point, and it took you. But this is our objective. This is what we're going to try to do, to accept the defeat and to include those who did not receive most of the vote or majority of the vote. But I would like to leave some more time for Q&A. So I will end it that we are grateful for what you're doing in Afghanistan, and for some time to come with the beauty of the land, with the richness of the culture. We need your friendship and partnership. And we hope all we can do is ask. I know you have other priorities. We know it's a different world today. We completely understand. But what we consider is investment, your assistance, too, for the stability of Afghanistan and the region. So I'll allow some time for Q&A. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, first of all, thank you very much for coming. It's really great to have some unfiltered and honest news, not through the media, so thank you again. I have two questions. Let's do it this way. I have two questions. I think the first one is, can you speak to sort of what the thinking was in the last 8 years, and certainly 6, 7 years ago, in the inability or unwillingness to sort of build up the internal security forces, the ANA and certainly the police within Afghanistan?
Okay, thank you. A standing order at the DoD was that to your generals in Afghanistan that you're doing a great job, but can you do it with less? Because of the Iraq issue. Can you do it with less soldiers? Can you do it with less resources? Same thing, when we brought up this issue of how many ANA do we need, they said, well, 30,000. It doesn't make sense. We use any formula. It's 250, 240,000. We are, as I mentioned, bigger than Iraq, more complicated Iraq. The argument back then was that, well, it's not sustainable. And as you can see, that's a weak argument. It's not sustainable to have a TSA at the U.S. airports when we have economic crisis. But can you say that we're going to get rid of the TSA operations at the U.S. airports because we have a... No, this is not a money that we can spare. It's that we're not going to do the National Army because it's expensive. It's not. For the price of one international soldier, we can have 80 Afghan National Army fight and die in Afghanistan. And it's our responsibility, our duty too. But the argument was it's not sustainable, which was a very weak argument, because this is an expense that we cannot let go of. It's like you and I are an inconvenience in the airport when we travel, but can we say that, no, I don't want to be inconvenienced, let's get rid of TSA, I want to just, like the good old days, drive to the plane and then walk up. No, this was a necessary expense. We could not do without it. You know, this is the point I was making in the past. I said, look, this argument of sustainability doesn't make sense. Yes, we don't have enough money to pay for all these soldiers, but you are paying with your treasures and your blood instead of building that army. Now there is more willingness to look into that. Army is doing better. Police force is still, we used to pay $70 to a police officers. And as you can imagine, if you pay $70, it's not like if you pay less, then the guy has to be corrupt or is allowed to be corrupt because he's poor. No. If you offer $70, the good guys will not show up. The guy that show up to fight Al-Qaeda and narco-traffickers for $70 of salary a month either has bad intention of using his gun and uniform to make money on the side or is completely an idiot. And that's what we got. So there's an expression, I think it's a Dutch expression, it says when you give peanut, you give monkeys. And
all right, my second question is sort of a little more, I guess, current, in that one of the points you make is that in order to be successful, we clearly need to help you rebuild the nation and build schools and clinics and roads. And America generally is not a nation-building country. It's not something we do very well, and we certainly didn't do it very well in the past. And our State Department, I don't think, has ever been sort of organized around that. And I guess I would ask you if you could comment on how are we doing? Have we figured it out enough to help you?
You never tried to do nation building. When you tried, you did it very well. You did it very well in Korea. You did it very well in Germany. So it's a matter of really deciding to do it right way. And people say, well, Afghanistan is very different from Korea. No, it's not. Talk about lack of infrastructure, talk about corrupt. Anything that you see in Afghanistan was in Korea. But you made this country is a reliable ally of yours in that part of the world. So it could be done. And as I mentioned, we see it as an investment. If you continue to, we have learned, basically together you and I have learned in Afghanistan that it costs a lot more to do too little. You have to go back and refix it. With the police force, we said, well, the Germans are doing it, the Europeans are doing it. Now you have to come back and do it with a lot more expense. So, no, the ability and the capability of doing this is there. Of course, the resources are scarce. I understand. I know the economic crisis in here. And that's why there is a limit on what we can ask for. Our approach is better to invest and do it the right way from the very beginning, like you did with our national army, instead of doing it a duct tape approach, because you can fix it with a duct tape, it's going to leak, and at some point it's going to burst instead of leaking. Thank you.
Mr. Ambassador, again, welcome. We're gratified that you took time out for your busy schedule to be amongst us, and we've enjoyed your presentation. As someone who served several times in Vietnam, I see a couple of parallels here. One, we always thought that the key to victory would eventually be the Vietnamese taking over their own war. There was a process of Vietnamization. It perhaps didn't go far enough. In the Philippines and in Malaya, on the other hand, it worked very well over time. It seems to me that Americans have just so much time at their disposal with regard to a war, then they get very tired of it. It gets very expensive. I wonder if you'd give us kind of a, if you will, a cost-benefit analysis. How long will it take to train the Afghan military and, if necessary, elements of the government to deal with these problems on their own so that you can, in fact, complete the job and win it, as you can and should? And how does this correspond with the American internal political timeline?
Thank you. Yes, that's an excellent question. Truly, I think how long does it take will depend on two factors. First, your presence in our common fight is a fight against terrorism. It's not just for rebuilding Afghanistan, if you mentioned. You didn't come to rebuild Afghanistan. You come to as part of a global war. And if there are improvements in Pakistan, more sincerity on their part of the Pakistan to fight this war for all of us, for their sake, for your sake, for our sake, your expenses in a military expenditure will drop drastically in Afghanistan. And that will also give us a time and resources and possibility to build our army fast. The reason that we need this bigger army is because of the pressure of the terrorists. So if this is reduced or relieved, then we can build our army fast. Today, we have a hard time pulling our police units that we are not satisfied with, that they are not performing well. We can't pull them back and train them because they're under the gun. They're not good, but they're the only one in the village. So therefore, it depends really on the regional factors. If there are a complication of the U.S. relation with Iran, for instance, that will impact Afghanistan. But if there is less tension with Pakistan is more cooperative, less tension with Iran, that will help us a lot. Because they will come and try to get to you in Afghanistan if there is complication in relation with Iran. Regional factors, but on the other side is what I have been asking for, and I respectfully made this point before, is more upfront investment. More said, yes, we are here, we want to succeed. And if it takes 3 years or 4 years, we will do it. But if you're not sure and says it's the mission, we're not sure if we can do it, we're not sure if it's worth it, that sends completely the wrong message to the enemy. The way the Taliban operates in the villages in Afghanistan, they tell, well, American will be leaving, and you have to deal with me. So the villager is a pragmatic man. But if he says clearly, he said, no, we are not going to be leaving until you have some stability. That's, to speak clearly, more resources up front and work on the regional. That's how long it takes. There was a second part of the question. Let me just, with your permission, get a piece of paper. I think this was the question. Anything else that I left out?
Yes, well, what is the timeline that you envisage as far as the Afghan military and government itself being able to carry on the necessary fight to a successful conclusion?
On the current schedule for the military and police, 3 years, under the current security threat. If this threat is reduced, then we don't need a bigger army. We can do it faster. But if the threat increases because of the regional factors, Pakistan or others, the timeline will change. It's not solely in our hand. The resources in your hand, the conditions are regional. But as far as manpower, if you ask Afghans, there's plenty of them to come in and sign up to work, to be in the army or the police force. Of course, there are impediments such as illiteracy that you have to work on. And that's, but overall, 3 years of time to build the Afghan security force. But your commitment to stay in the region does not have to be military. We hope that it will be in the term of decades, the way that you have done it with the rest of the world. Not military, but a commitment to stay with the people in the region. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Warren Kershaw. Again, I want to thank you for coming to the Eastern Shore on Friday night.
Thank you.
We all know what that means. I have 2 questions for you. One, how much does the drug trade finance Al-Qaeda?
Okay.
And the second question, after having the Taliban there for a period of time and witnessing the crazy bombing of innocent people, why don't the Afghanistans themselves rise up and try to get rid of these crazies?
Very good. The connection with Al-Qaeda and narco business, it's a little bit hard to be quantified, truly, or for me to quantify it, because Al-Qaeda is such a loose organization. And there are thugs, there are criminals, there are ideological elements in the Taliban. There are narco-traffickers that work with them. They provide protection for the smuggling routes and make money out of that. And as you know, the real money in the drug business is not in the hand of the farmers. The farmers probably make 1/10 of the money. A kilo of opium in a farm in Afghanistan costs $200. That's not a lot of money for the farm. But when it's processed into heroin or it reaches some port in Europe, it gets into hundreds of thousands. So the real money is in processing and trafficking, which Al-Qaeda helped by providing security to the routes and bringing in the precursor, the chemicals that's needed. But for Taliban, at least 40% of the income of Taliban are coming from opium, because they impose taxes on cultivation, but also collect money from processing and trafficking. And why people tolerate Taliban? Because of fear. Sir, if you are a small villager in Afghanistan, with all the good intention that you have to teach the children in this village, but when at the night the Taliban come and behead your wife, you feel a sense of despair. And the next day, there is no soldier of ISAF or Afghan police to protect you. So it's hard to stick your head the way it should be, is the dignity of human being. The way Taliban works is terror. It's basically pushing people into submission by killing, by insulting their dignity, and really by pushing them into submission. It's not a competition of winning the heart of people. If the government do this, we will be giving you death. No, it's submission. It's the way the terrorists work all over the world. Create fear, and that's why they instead of targeting international forces or our soldiers, they usually target civilians. They put a bomb in a mosque when people are just going to pray, and especially in a month like Ramadan, where people are praying and fasting. Many instances happen that people are going to the mosque to pray, and then the bomb goes on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kathy Gilson, and my question is a little bit more longer term and more structural.
Sure.
And I think it relates to the economy of Afghanistan. I'd like to understand that a little bit more. And since you alluded to a literacy rate of 20 or 30%, that doesn't seem very compatible with democracy or with being able to combat terrorism. So I wondered if there's any way the economy could support a better education system, and an education system that instills values that would be able to support a better police department and army.
Thank you. Very good question. Thank you. The economy is mostly agricultural based in Afghanistan. We are trying to create better market for agricultural products. And the reason is that, and this relates also to the issue of narcotics, is the reason that a farmer grows poppy is because it takes only 3 months to grow poppy. And once you have harvested that deadly material, you can put it in a plastic bag and put it in a corner of the room. It's sitting there for another 6 months. You don't need a refrigerator. You don't need cold storage. You don't need roads to transport it. So the reason, and then if you need cash, you just cut a piece of it. You don't need banking system. So for every other agricultural product, you need infrastructure. You need to bring this grape from Kandahar into Dubai for the farmer to make money out of it. Otherwise, so on the agriculture, so we're building the focuses on agriculture, but agriculture is not what really make Afghanistan sustainable. Getting back to the question of sustainability of the forces and other, what we are right now hoping to make Afghanistan economy to stand on our own feet is through minerals. We just signed recently a contract of copper with China, $3.5 billion investment. So we're looking, and Afghanistan is very rich in minerals, coal and iron ore and oil and gas. We are looking for investment in these areas. And I personally worked very hard to get some American companies to invest, particularly in the copper mine. Talk with Freeport and other, but China is very aggressive. They need these resources, so they provide much better bidding. So this is the area that we're hoping on the long run to sustain the economy. On education, I totally agree with you. Not only it's an important component of building a democracy and civil society, nothing. A good constitution is not helpful if you don't have a good education system. Gender equality, women's rights does not mean it stays just on the book if you don't have proper education system. This is key, and that's why I emphasize actually what we are doing with our school. We are spending 38% of our national budget of our own money on education only. So it's way more than what we are spending on the military, because fortunately there are other countries who are helping with that. But this is a big priority. Without education, nothing could be accomplished or could be sustained.
I wonder if you could speak a little bit about relations with your immediate neighbors, and in particular what they are doing, if anything, to either help you or harm you.
Thank you. Relations with I made a. I was speaking at Columbia University once, and I made a joke that was not appropriate. I said we live in the Bronx, and I got in trouble for it. But truly, we live in a very difficult neighborhood. We haven't chosen these neighbors. We end up with them. But truly, in Pakistan, as you know, there's history of supporting extremism in the country that is now also is endangering the Pakistani society too, in addition to the Afghan and the rest of the world. Iran plays both a constructive and destructive role in Afghanistan. On one hand, they try to help on the construction because they don't like Taliban either. But on the other hand, they don't like seeing American or NATO succeed in Afghanistan. So they play a dual role. They keep all options open. China is playing a constructive role. China is involved, especially they are interested in investing in the economy of Afghanistan, which is welcome. Our northern neighbors, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, there's a lot of potential to do a lot more with them. But unfortunately, the nature of the regimes are a little bit closed there. So we are not fully benefiting from the potential of economic trade with them. There's a lot of possibilities. Important regional allies, of course, India. Russia is becoming more and more cooperative. Extremism and narcotics are equal threat to Russia as it is to the United States and Afghanistan. But again, they really don't like the fact that NATO and U.S. is there and will succeed. So everyone is playing a relatively complicated role, and in that we are trying to convince everyone that U.S. presence, NATO presence, and as you know, as I mentioned, 41 countries has military presence in Afghanistan. It's not just the U.S. And those countries not necessarily have a particular strategic interest. When Iceland is sending actually guys to help out with the operation of the Kabul airport, there is really not a strategic military interest. There is really a part of humanity trying to help out the country who is suffering a lot. And that's the point that we are making, that other alternatives are worse. If the United States leaves, if NATO leaves, the danger that is coming from that region will be more destructive.
I have a question about what you think the government of Afghanistan will do once you get rid of the Taliban about health care, since I know that the age expectancy in Afghanistan is about 43.
It's a very good question. Yes, if we didn't have to fight against Taliban and the terrorists, and we would have improved the life of Afghan in a tremendous way. And you're right, we are making a lot of progress in the area of healthcare. As you mentioned, the life expectancy in Afghanistan is among the lowest in the world. But still, when we started in 2001, 8% of Afghan had access to basic health care, 8%. Basic means really basic. And today, 85% of Afghan has access to basic health care. So in the way we started with the health care, and I'm glad you asked this question, we focused first on clinics, not so much on hospitals and sophisticated operations, because most Afghans die from preventable causes. Most women die, unfortunately, from while giving birth, not from heart disease or more sophisticated. Of course, they're dying also of other disease, but this was a priority. So instead of building a big hospital, we built 20 clinics on the countryside because there was no roads in it, and the people should be able to come quickly to the hospital. So the priority has been on the package of the basic. When the Taliban is over, we hope to build modern hospitals to take care of actually our seniors and others with more complicated health conditions. Thank you. But it was an excellent question. Thank you for coming here. I really appreciate that. You will make a very good diplomat one day. I'm sure.
Mr. Ambassador, my name is Jay Plager. I'd like to pick up on his question and the lady's question back there for just a moment more. I am sorry to say that many of us in this country really have no sense for what the world of Afghanistan, from the people's viewpoint, is really like. what your world is like, how you're organized, what goes on in your mountains and in your cities. And I don't expect you to be able to tell us in just a minute what it's all about, but I understand you did grow up there, and you went to school, you got your law degree in Kabul, so you've seen changes over the years. We have an image of ourselves that is very homogeneic, and although we're a pluralistic society, you know, we're all more alike than we are unalike. I don't know whether that's really true in your country. I get the sense that it's a tribal, organized kind of society. I wish you'd just give us a little flavor, if you would, for a minute, of the sense of your society and perhaps the changes you've seen in the years since you've been growing up there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very good question, and it really relates to a part of the question about democracy that was mentioned and its relevance to education. And also, I've been asked in the past, so what do you mean democracy in Afghanistan? Some people have it. If democracy means going to bed at night without fearing the secret police, if democracy means having a possibility to take your wife or your spouse to the hospital and be sure that you walk out alive, this is something that every human being demand and deserve. That has really nothing to do with how advanced they are. This is the nature of human being, demanding dignity and basic services. And this is what Afghan people demand. They may not know all the sophistication of a difference of presidential system or a parliamentary system, but that's exactly what they demand, and that's what exactly when they give them, they'll take it. They will risk having their fingers cut off, but still will go to vote. The changes that are taking place in Afghanistan, 30 years of negative changes. You are right, Afghanistan was a tribal society. And the tribal structure in Afghanistan is a structure which is based on given and taken. A lot of taken on the part of the tribal chief, but also some given back too, because otherwise he would not last for 2,000 years to be the tribal leader. It's like same thing in Europe. Some monarchies or some noble families that stayed there, they did take something from the farmers, from rural people, but they give something back too. That's why they lasted. And that's exactly the tribal society, is a reciprocity. You give something back, you take. But when the Soviet invaded Afghanistan and the war started, a new element was introduced into this equation, which was AK-47, Kalashnikov, and Quran. So a young man, illiterate, with no tribal background, that has an AK-47 and is holding a wrong interpretation of a holy book, will come into the village and says, I'm the power. Who is here to confront me, show me? So the tribal structure, which is a value-based system of reciprocity, given and taken, is gone. Is being replaced by a culture of warlords, culture of violence. I have a bigger gun, or my interpretation is rigid than yours, then I'm the legitimate guy. So therefore, the changes that took place in the 30 years was not so much in favor of building a civil society and strengthening those values. In the past, when I was as a kid in Afghanistan, again, I went to a French high school in Afghanistan in 1970. This was not a completely tribal society, people on the mountains. No, my teacher were from in Kabul were teaching in French. My mother and my mother-in-law, both of them were teachers and nurses. And we are from Kandahar. I'm not from Kabul, from the metropolitan city. I'm from the south, from Kandahar. So there was a society that existed. There were women who served as ministers, who were senators back then when I was a kid under the monarchy. And I'm glad that some of you, I've talked with some gentlemen who were in Afghanistan during the monarchy. So a lot of these have taken a toll, if they have been damaged. Now we are trying to restore these and replace them with positive changes. Now, of course, the positive changes are that an Afghan kid is connected to the internet. An Afghan kid is watching, actually, American Idol or something like that. It doesn't matter. Or we're coming to school, to universities here. So we are putting the positive impact of the globalization on bringing it to the Afghans. That's why education, not only education in Afghanistan, but also training and scholarship opportunities for Afghans here are very crucial. And any of you who could help to bring an Afghan student and make him stay in your home or a place and give him a chance of 3 to 4 years, you will be changing the life of this individual forever. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Aspen Wye Fellows, I want to thank you first for coming across the bay to talk to us, second for being so honest and credible and thorough in your presentation, and mostly for thanking us, the American people.
That's my job.
To help you.
That's from the bottom of the heart, truly. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.